What up? What up? What up? It is Thursday. It's a beautiful Thursday morning. What up, everybody? Just gonna wait a few minutes, let everyone start wiping the sleep out their eyes, roll over in their beds, give them a minute to figure out what's going on today. Yet another day. I lost track of day numbers. But yeah, we're moving forward here. We had a good 3 lessons, again, all posted up on YouTube. So please make sure today at the least, you're going back through those lessons so you'll have a good amount of knowledge for tomorrow's test. And yes, the answer is tomorrow is Friday and tomorrow is a test. And you can see it on my screen, racked and ready to go. Quiz number 23, Tamari. Also due tomorrow, Project 9A, the second part of the master class. Maybe I should reword that because this says Project 9 Logic Pro Master Class. So I'll just put, let's do a little edit here while I have you guys and I'm just letting people in. Go into my 3 little dots. We'll edit it and we'll call it Project 9A Master Class II. Ooh, scary. I'm going to save that up. I'm going to let some more people in here. Isaiah back after a few days of MIA. I like it. Like it a lot. All right. So, yeah, like I said, quiz tomorrow. A lot of information we went over this week. And what I'm banking on is that you guys remember a lot of the things we did in Pro Tools in regards to the plugins. But we did do some very specific things in Logic over the last 3 days in regards to plugins. So, again, if you want to find out that information, zip on over to our YouTube page and watch the lessons again. Also, if we take a look at the stream, a couple things popped up. Number one, Miss Spano and Miss Fox will potentially be adding work to our classroom. And so here we are in the math class. That is work. It's very easy. Just I swear, with a calculator, it'll take you 5 to 10 minutes. But just get that done so she can check it off in the book. So that work dropped yesterday. I put a page of notes up. Now, I want to show you this really quick because I don't know how many people are actually looking at it. But if you see this, it covers all 4 plugins we did over the last 3 days. Now, we spent an extensive amount of time Monday and Tuesday dealing with EQ and compression, but you see the notes don't quite add up to the amount of stuff that we actually did. Now, why am I relying more on the classes? Well, because what we're doing live every day at 10 o'clock is extremely important. It's substituting the 3 hours per day you're at my class with just basically an hour a day. So we're kind of reducing the amount of time that we're spending together. So with that said, those classes and those live videos that we do and this Zoom chat that we do every day is extremely important. And so that's why I'm highly recommending that you go back and look at and pay attention to the videos of the notes of the live lessons every single day. Please, I can't plead more. It's the only way you're going to pass the tests. So this particular page of notes just gives you an outline of those 3 days. So on Monday, we did EQ. On Tuesday, we did dynamics, which includes all the compression stuff with limiting. And then, of course, reverb and delay were done yesterday. And that was a little longer of a lesson where we talked about Space Designer. We talked about Delay Designer. We talked about impulse responses. We did all that stuff. And you can see all that's here. You know, a limiter at 10-to-1, default EQ. There's a couple of other EQs that we did mention and went through. But like, for instance, Monday, we talked about parts of the Logic EQ that were different. So questions like the analyzer pre and post, what does that mean? What does it do? What is it showing? That kind of stuff is going to be on the test. And the only way you're going to get that information from me is going back and watching the live lesson again. It's the only way. If you missed it on Monday, you have to watch it. If you missed it on Tuesday's compression, you have to watch it. We talked about a multipressor We talked about noise gating. So all this stuff is here on this page of notes, as you can see, but it's just not broken out to the length and the detail that our lessons cover. So you have to watch the lessons and stop traffic. Maybe while you're watching the lessons, you take notes. I know it seems like a lot of work. Just wait till you get to college. Just wait. They expect you just take notes as they're talking. And then they'll put it on a test and you're like, what the hell is this? And if you weren't paying attention, you weren't fully committed into the class, you're going to miss it. And you're not going to get the question right on the test. So as the year goes on, a lot more of our demos, a lot more of what's being spoken will be started to be integrated into the test. Extremely important to be college ready. College ready. That's what we're trying to get. And at this time in the year, with only 2.5 months left of school, you got to be ready to go. You got to know what the tricks are. You got to know what is going to happen next year. It's not going to be 13th grade where they're going to hand feed you everything again. And hopefully you're in classes that you're interested in. But if you're not, that doesn't mean you can just forget about it, not attend, not pay attention, not do anything. You really have to make an effort to take what you're seeing and translate it into something you understand. And again, if you don't understand anything, you need to ask questions. That's what school is for, the questions. Hence the reason why I said it was very important for project number 9 to have those questions asked. 2 questions per day for 5 days. So you would have a total of 10 questions about what you were seeing. I'm sure a lot of you had a lot of questions. And if you really paid attention to it and thought about what they were doing and watched what they're doing and put any effort, you would have questions. You should have questions. This is a master class. This is a more advanced class than anything that we've done so far. Yeah, there's some little things here and there that we have done. And of course, you shouldn't be questioning that unless you seriously don't understand. But we're going to start going over those questions probably next week. We'll start with project 9, just regular 9, and go through some of the questions people had. And then as the weeks progress and we get further and further down the road in logic, I know that a bunch of you ask questions like quick swiping and comping. We're going to do that. And we'll try to cover that within the questions. So I'm going to post all that up and get it out there for people to see. And then, of course, if you're not in part of these live lessons every single day, Monday through Thursday, let's say, then you 100% must go back to the YouTube videos and watch them and understand them and come into the class the next day with questions if you have them. Because every day, as you know, I go back through all the stuff that we did prior. So today I'll do a quick review on EQ, compression, and reverb and delay. But you should be coming into the class today with questions about things you don't understand, clarification, fully understanding parts and pieces. Listen, I know this is not easy. Trust me, I'm the one doing it, and it ain't easy on my end either. I can sit in front of a microphone all day, but to really help you fully understand it, you really need to let me know what your level of understanding is. So let's move forward just for a moment. We'll get back to logic work. So I know people also ask me about these scholarships. So I posted or reposted the scholarship information with the updated application with updated dates. I just got these yesterday. So this one, it doesn't look like it has a date. Of course, the first thing I show you as an example doesn't have it. Let me go into the fair because that one I did check. And you can see here, it's, I think it's May 10th. Let me just scroll down here. Oh, boy. Oh, here it is. No, Friday, April 24th. So they extended that deadline. So that's not until, what was that, next week or so? I don't even know what date it is. What else is up here? The Laverty. Yep. This one was extended until when? Let's see. Blah, May 1st. So Laverty was extended till May 1st. So that gives you 2 weeks for that one. And then I posted a 4th scholarship, the Alive Scholarship. This is the internal scholarship that we do within the school. This is usually the one that we fundraise for throughout the year from the Alive fashion shows and donations and things like that. So Alive is doing their scholarship this year, even though we didn't have our fashion show. So This one is due on May 1st. Just please read through all of this information. If you need letters of recommendation from me, please just request one via email, or you can write it right here in the class comments, and I'll try to get that to you. I did contact the guidance counselor who's in charge of scholarships, and she said that I just forwarded on to her. She'll print it on official letterhead for the external scholarships, but for the internal, it's not necessary. So I can just write you a letter recommendation from there. And then, of course, like I said to you at the start of the class today, tomorrow is a quiz, and Project 9A is tomorrow. So Project 9A is due. That's the Master Class 2, and Quiz 23 will become available to you tomorrow around 10:20 to 10:25, depending on, if you refresh your browser fast enough, you can take it right away. And yeah, we'll join the Zoom lesson tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and I'll answer any questions over that 20-minute period before the test if you have any. And then you're off and running for the weekend, hopefully getting more projects done. Like I said, grades are coming in. They're coming in slower than I'd like, but they're coming in. You can see it's starting to get a little more populated, and we have a lot more kids now joining the class, which is awesome. But you really need to make sure that you have every single one of those missing areas completed. You got to do the work, guys. That's plain and simple. I've been on several phone calls and meetings with guidance counselors, administrators, and homeschool guidance counselors. And some people have already started getting phone calls from their homeschools saying, "What are you doing with tech? Like, what'd you think? It was just not going to happen? We're just going to ignore it? It's half your day. It's a lot of your grade." So just make sure that you go back and finish out all those projects ASAP for your benefit, not for mine. I have all the time in the world, man. Don't worry about me. Worry about you. All right. Questions about any of the work, any of the scholarships, any of the math? Yes, again, for those of you who joined late, there was about 4 or 5 of you that just came in. Ms. Spano posted a math assignment. Where is it? Scroll. Nope, that's there. There it is. Here it is, math with Ms. Spano. Again, if you go into classwork, I don't know if anybody really clicks on anything else but the stream, but it is all broken out. So our intro with the quiz was there, and that also coupled up with projects 8, B, C, and D. Then we had 102, which we did last week, and the quiz and the project. And now this week, 103 with the project and the quiz that's shortly coming out. And you can see these should be organized back into intro, but that's fine. And now in here also is the math integration. So please make sure you submit that via the Google Classroom. It's actually really simple. Like I said, it's literally just calculating tips. And if you had a calculator, I bet you I could beat you in a calculator race on all of these. It would take me probably less than 10 minutes to calculate all these. So if you just look at her examples, go ahead and type into here all the answers and submit it via the Google Classroom. That would be amazing. Right. And again, please make sure that you're copying the notes, even though it's only one day of notes here. Please make sure you're copying these notes onto some piece of paper or in your notebook the best you can, because there will be a notebook check at one point or other. I'm going to say goodbye to Instagram really quick. Goodbye, Instagram. Hopefully that is still helping people out. Remind them that, oh, crap, we still have class. And the answer is yes. Until further notice, we're doing the class this way. Any other questions? Anything? All right. Well, we're going to move forward because that's what we do. So, like I said to you, I'm going to do a quick review for those of you who may have missed stuff this week. Let's quickly just go over some of the elements we touched on. We ended up recording this nice little vocal track here. Punch in, and this is a test only on the punch in. And you can hear there's a lot of affecting going on that. So let's break that down for you. Let me break it down. All right. So here's our vocal track right here in solo mode. We added an EQ. Our basic EQ can be added by double clicking on the thumbnail here. Once you have the channel EQ, which is the name of our basic everyday EQ, you have a basically visualization of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz where you can boost or cut. You know this. This is something we've already talked about at length of what an EQ is. The parameters are down here, things like your frequency, your cut or boost, and your Q value. But the great thing about Logic, as we mentioned, is its analyzer. So I can analyze the signal coming in by putting on the analyzer and putting it in pre. Punch in, and this is a test only on the punch in. So that is the signal before it gets affected. And then I put it in post, and now here is the visualization of the signal after. Punch in, and this is a test only on the punch in. And you can tell by the visualization that the bottom half of, let's say, 80 hertz and lower got rolled off. And there was a slight boost here around the 2500 mark. So you can actually physically see it. And this was what made Logic's EQ so unique. So on an audio track, I'm putting my channel EQ in. I'm making adjustments. I'm making things. Alexis, I'll get right to you. I'm doing the things that are necessary to take a good recording and make it better, not take a bad recording and try to fix it, right? Go ahead, Alexis. What do you need?
This is kind of unrelated in a way, but I tried to use the option where you can make a new track and have like the same channel strip, I think. And
okay.
So like when I tried to stack my audio tracks like in takes, but like on the second track that was supposed to be the same as my first one, I couldn't hear the audio from the first track.
Right. So were you doing a loop record, a cycle record?
No.
So you have two different tracks and
yes,
they have the same information on them?
Yeah, like they were supposed to have the same channel strip, yeah. But
same channel strip, so the same lineup of plugins.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe, and run with me here, there's two things that could go wrong. Number one, check your solos. Number two, check your inputs, because as you can see right now, this input, as much as it's input one, the track before it is also input one, but because I'm selected on it, you're only seeing it. You're not seeing both. Like if I selected this one, you can see this one. If I selected this one, you see this one. So there are some times where because of your input and output routing, you could only have one track being heard at a time. So that's possible. Yeah. The other thing is if you have the same EQ compression, like for instance, if I take this, copy it over, have the exact same thing, EQ and compression. When I made that copy, sometimes there are settings that come with it that only apply to this track, so they won't apply to this track. And that will basically negate what you're hearing. It's a possibility. I would really make sure of a couple of things. Number one, that you don't have the solos on, and make sure you have no mutes or solos in the whole thing. And then very specifically look at each track individually. Maybe don't play them together right away. Play them individually. And if they play individually, you know it's there. Obviously, if you see the waveforms, you know it's there. It's just that sometimes when you're making copies and when you're duplicating tracks like that, it can cause issues. And I don't know exactly where those issues may lie, but it's quite possible that that's the reason. So just check all your routing, check all your signals, and then isolate each one to make sure they work on themselves. The other thing I can think of is your output. So for instance, my output across the board right now is my stereo out. If I come over here to this track and I change my output for some reason to no output, you'll still see the VU meters, but nothing will end up reaching the master track. So you won't hear it. So check your outputs as well. There's just a couple places where things can go wrong. Just double check all your routing and find the track that's not working and then examine the entire channel strip to make sure everything and all the settings are correct.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Yep. Get back to me when either you got it or you don't, and we'll go further than that next time. All right. So yeah, we did EQ. And then on Tuesday, we started talking about compression, right? And so that was the next step in the channel strip. And that is this ability to reduce dynamic range on your signal. So whatever you've recorded, you can reduce the peaks and valleys, get them to be closer to each other, and allowing you then to raise the entire volume. And as we said, we can look at the effects of a compressor simply by looking at what the signal is as it comes in and what it is as it goes out. So here is that. So you could see that my input is only going about -9, -12, but my output is between -6 and 0. And so these settings, like, and we know about these settings already from Pro Tools, threshold, ratio, knee, attack, and release all have distinct effects on the signal as it goes through the plugin. So what goes in is changed on the way out. We talked about a bunch of these types of um, compression algorithms, the original old school triple OG platinum digital, and then we have VCAs, we have FETs, we have optos. We ended up using a vintage vocal preset, and it gave us the vintage FET setting. And then we made little changes here and there, like I increased my ratio to about 4:1. I decreased my threshold so more would be affected. Again, reducing the dynamic range, allowing me to then take the entire vocal track and make it appear or audibly sound louder. And this is without me touching the fader at all. I'm not touching any faders at this point during my process of adding plugins. So then yesterday, we started doing our bus routes. We said Logic is unbelievably intelligent. So when you add a bus, it automatically creates you an auxiliary track. And we did that yesterday. Our bus right here was created, bus 4. When I added that bus, it actually created a brand new track. We labeled that track, and then we added the reverb plugin. This one is called Space Designer, and it has a lot of different ways of allowing you to change time and space, reflectivity, the signal coming back, basically non-direct sound. We talked about the difference between synthesized and IR samples. Synthesized is basically mathematically based. Everything is done with math and science involved, all the settings and all that good stuff. But the IR samples that are involved here are real samples, samples that people took of very specific spaces in our world, environments that we can't go to Italy to a church, very specific church, and get that exact reverb unless I do go there or somebody goes there and captures the reflectivity of the signals in that space. There is very, very specific software that can do this. Logic has an impulse response utility built into it, the ability to go in and create impulse responses of real environments in our world. Get them into the plugin, make it a preset, and now you can use that. So I made the analogy of going into your bathroom in your room. Everyone's bathroom is a different size, different shape, different things in it, but you really like the sound of your bathroom. Well, you can actually build a preset based upon the reflectivity of your bathroom. Crazy, right? And that's called an IR sample. So you're basically sampling a space in the environment. Whereas synthesize is just that. We're synthesizing, we're faking it, we're creating it using just numbers. And then the parts of this reverb plugin are all within the settings and the parameters around. What we did talk about is cranking up the wet signal, the reverb signal, to 100%. When we're doing this particular strategy of bussing out signals, our reverb over here has to then be 100% because we're going to be using the dial by the bus to control how much reverb is there. And then we're going to be using the fader to control how much comes out. That's kind of the better way, more controlling way of getting EQ into our signal. I don't like using a dry and wet mix. It's never exactly the way you want it. And it always adds more volume than you can control. I find this much more controlling, and a lot of engineers agree with that we should be bussing out timed effects. It gives you more control. So yeah, our reverb plugin is going to be 100% wet signal. That means all reverb and nothing but reverb. And then, of course, our settings down here determine kind of what that reverb characteristics are. So we have a volume envelope, which tells me how fast it decays off or how slow it decays off. Those are things you can change. There are filters. Filters control things like high pass, low pass, different frequencies of what comes back and what goes in. So you can see this frequency information is down here: attack time, break time, decay time, and end level. So yeah, there's a bunch of settings that can be messed around with. Of course, I'm saying, without getting too confused, try a preset. And then if you want a little tweak or change in what it's doing, then make those changes. But first start with a preset. That way you get an idea of kind of where you're going in regards to time and in regards to space. There is a density envelope for presets that actually have a density setting. This one doesn't, so you can't see it. There is an EQ built into this. I don't recommend using it. And then, of course, there is a reverse reverb, which is kind of cool. Basically, instead of being loud and then decaying off, it actually comes from decay and builds into attack. It's just a reversal of the reverb signal, not of the sound itself. You're not reversing, like Missy Ellioting the signal. It's just not happening. And again, yeah, all the other parameters down here are available to you whenever you are clicked in and on different parts of the reverb plugin. So then we added a bus for delay, another time-based plugin. When we did that, we used bus 5. It automatically created an auxiliary track for us, and we added the delay designer, a very similar base concept where we have 100% control over every element of the delay. Again, we started with a preset. Lots and lots and lots and lots of presets here that you can use. And in those presets, they give very specific cutoffs in regards to time. They have resonation, which is how long things will continue to bounce around. Transpositioning means we're changing pitch. Panning is not part of this particular preset, but when it is part of a preset, you can actually pan left and right each delay. So it kind of travels back and forth between your ears. And of course, we have volume level. You could have it a steady volume throughout. You could have it decrease, or you could have it crescendo up or decrescendo down, whatever you want to do. Completely customizable. And again, on this delay designer, we are cranking in 100% of the effect, and we're using the dial here and the fader here to control how much of that delay is in our signal path. So again, I'm going to click solo, and let's take a listen really quick to exactly what it sounds like with both on. Punch in, and this is a test only on the punch in. Now you can see, even after I hit stop, it still continued to do its delay. And that's really the point. I want to hear what that delay sounds like. It's bouncing out at a very specific time. I actually mentioned that you could actually tap in your own delay. So if you wanted to like stutter and you can't find a preset that will do that, you can like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can actually tap that in to this. So then your delay would be delayed, something like that. So again, the reason why I use delay designer is because of that level of customization. It really gives you the freedom to do anything that you want creatively. But again, knowing how to use the parts and pieces and knowing what they do is all part of the game. You're not going to know how to do it until you kind of mess around with it. Or again, watch these live videos and see how I do it. And then eventually when we get back to class and use Logic, you'll be able to play with it as much as you want. All right. What else did we go over? I think that was it leading up till today. So today I want to discuss a little bit of automation with plugins. Yes, automation with plugins. So let's unsolo myself and let's push the A button. And that A button hides and reveals automation information. And now you could see standard that we have volume usually as our default automation line. If you're not using automation, it's usually grayed out. So right now on some of these tracks, I'm not using it. But if I wanted to use it, all I have to do is click on the line and magically it highlights and comes up and allows you to do your very customized automation. Let's take a look at my Sunset kit for a minute. You can see that I placed a purple line of automation. So what is the purple line of automation? Well, let's drop down our automation parameters and let's take a look at our standard automation information. We know we can always do pan and volume pretty much by default. These guys, when you click on them, pan and volume are there. And like I said, volume is really the default when you first go in there. But we also have these other things that pop up. And if you remember in Pro Tools, again, just trying to make the distinction between the two softwares. In Pro Tools, in order to get a parameter from a plugin to show up, you had to claw click on the parameter in the plugin. Again, you had to go into the plugin, you had to find the parameter you want to automate, you had to hit Control Option Command, click on it, and a little light would appear in the plugin, letting you know that now it's automatable. Then you'd have to go back into the edit window. You'd have to drop down a lane of information, or you could basically change your track view to an automation view. And then you'd have to select the plugin, the parameter, and change it from there. So that's a couple of extra steps that needed to be taken. Logic's, again, a little more intuitive in this way, that as soon as you add a plugin, it becomes part of the list. So let's look at our main controls. Like we said, volume, pan, actually you could do solo, balance, mute. But then the new ones that come up are going to be some of the sends. So for instance, on the Sunset kit, I have a bus, a send ready to go. So that send should appear here in my list, and it does right there. Send one to the small room villa bathroom. So I can select that, and that one that I selected actually became purple. Let's go to a different one really quick just to show you what it looks like. Volume we know is yellow, right? And I don't have any automation information volume written on this track. But if I were to click and basically activate it, now it becomes available to us. What else can I do? Well, let's look at pan. And pan looks green. And take a look at that. So now I can create pan information where I can basically pan left and pan right and automate that. All right. These are just basic automation stuff that we've already kind of talked about, but I want to get into other areas. For instance, a send to a auxiliary track comes up and looks like this. But all of the plugins, that includes audio effects, MIDI effects, channel EQ compressors, all of those are also now listed here. Look what you can do. For instance, the drum kit. I can actually automate crashes, shakers, claps, cowbells, tambourine. What does that mean? It basically means that you could do all sorts of different parameters within each instrument. So dampening of instruments, overhead, you can actually blend from a direct mic on the hi-hat to the overhead version of the hi-hat. If you know how the drum kit is made up, you'll see that all those channels are available to you when you break out the Sunset kit using a producer kit. You can see every single instrument. Well, because we're not in a producer kit in this particular way, we have to actually go through this process to find that particular piece of the kit and then find which one of the parameters of that kit, of that instrument, I want to automate. And this is where it gets a little crazy because a lot of times when you're doing a lot of automation on the same track, all these colors and lines and everything, they all kind of blend and it gets a little crazy. So there are other ways of displaying automation information. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I just want to show you that even though, we know about volume and pan and automation that way, you can automate any part of a MIDI instrument. You can automate any part of a plugin. You don't have to go and activate it. It's already been activated. The minute you put it on the channel strip, it becomes an automatable feature. And every single thing that can be automated is available to you. So for instance, all the high cut, high shelf, low cut, low shelves, the master gain, and then all the peak stuff in regards to Q factors, every single frequency, all 4 frequencies, 5 frequencies, 7 frequencies that are available to you inside of the EQ are all automatable, which means I can do frequency sweeping, right, very easily and automate it. When have I ever used that? I mean, that becomes a real question. You might be saying, oh, well, I mean, the hell am I ever going to use a frequency sweep on a drum kit? Well, there are plenty of tracks out there that do it. And it was all either prior to 1989, done using a piece of hardware. And now in the digital era, it's all being done using software. And this is how they do it. They automate it. They let the computer take over and do those live moves. They carefully map out and dot out all of their automation nodes and allow them to get that final view. Wow, what's up?
Yeah, I know it's not part of like the automation right now, but like for the MIDI taking, when you bounce it out, shouldn't it, the settings and the first of all, if you put EQ and compressor, shouldn't that be bounced out with it
It
to
will,
when
yeah. Yeah, yeah. If you're
you
bouncing,
bounce it to new track?
right.
But for me, when I do that, the EQ compressor and everything just stay bounce, also stay with the other track. But I
Well, are
don't.
you looking at my notes that I have right here in front of me on what I wanted to cover today? Because that's amazing. I
Oh,
literally was going to talk about it today. So thank you. Let me get to that. If I, for some reason, forget to, but it's on my list. I have it here. I will talk about that because there are a couple of different ways of turning MIDI into audio, which we will do in another lesson, probably in, I think, 2 weeks, where we start working on advanced MIDI stuff. But I did want to talk about how plugins work into bounces. So just give me a minute and I'll get to that right afterwards. But thanks. That's a really good question because I used to have that trouble not realizing at what level when I'm bouncing includes uh, things like plugins, includes things like automation, or things that don't. So let me get to that. Let me just finish up what I was talking about with the automation. Like I said, and while I was right, when we have a parameter like a high cut slope, and I put that into my automation, I should hear a result. And I should hear that result not only while I'm playing back the project, but I should hear that result in the bounce, in the final MP3 or WAV file or whatever you're creating. So we'll ensure that later when we get to that point. Channel EQ, again, the minute I put it into my channel strip here, it becomes an automatable feature. And then also the compressor. So the compressor, everything from attack to the ratio, the release, these are all things that can be changed in real time without you having to touch it while it's playing back or bouncing or anything like that. Let's do let's do the mix one here, so you can kind of see that one. And this one actually turns purple, even though the send is purple. This one is also purple. So again, make sure you know what you're doing, because if you don't, you're going to get very confused very quickly on what is what. I might want to automate my send, but instead I'm accidentally automating my compressor mix. Don't want to do that. So yeah, I have it set on my compressor, as you can see, at 100%. That's the mix right here. All right, so 100%. You see it right here. This is one of the things. So I can mix in a little bit or a lot of it. You see, as I'm moving this dial back here, the purple line is moving. Right, it's showing you how much of the compressor signal is mixing into the original dry signal. So let me just reset that to 100. That is a automatable piece. In fact, like I said, every single thing here is automatable. So when you're automating a plugin, you gotta be sure you know what you want to change. Some people aren't sure which parameter they want to do. So what I recommend always is to have the plugin up, to play it back, and to mess around with some settings. And when you're messing around with some settings in the compressor, you actually see things change and you'll see them labeled. So if you're messing around with this setting going, oh, that's what I wanted it to do, then go back to ratio inside of the project, inside of the compressor. And then I'm going to go down to ratio. Yay. And this one's orange. And now here's my change of my ratio. I can make it 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 8-to-1, all the way up to a brick wall limiter at this point at 30-to-1. And I can automate that. So as this gets further down the line, I can create a node. So I can go from a 1.3-to-1 ratio all the way up to a 12-to-1 ratio. Things are going to change. Sound is going to be different. Is this what you want to do? I don't know. But you're not going to know if you want that until you actually play around with it and do it. So all of these elements of the channel strip are automatable once you have them on the track. Let me give you, for instance, okay? So just take note of what's here. Smart controls, of course, but main, drum kit, channel EQ, compressor, volume pan. All right, let's add a new plugin. Let's add a new plugin. And I am going to talk about amps and pedals today too, by the way. New plugin. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Let's just throw on a distortion one really quick. Bit Crusher. Ugh. All right. So now let's take a look at our automation. There it is. Look at that. Magical. And every single part of that Bit Crusher plugin is here, available to us, that we can mess around, do some fun stuff with, automate, change, try to get a result. Also, if I get rid of it, by the way, it then disappears off my list. See, Bit Crusher is gone. All right, so you have options. Everything, every plugin, every send, every bit of the, in this case, a MIDI clip, MIDI track. It's a generator, so your software instrument generator is automatable. Yes, the drum kit is automatable. So again, if I go in the drum kit, all of these things and all of their parameters for each of these individual MIDI notes are automatable. So very cool, very, like I said, intuitive of this program to include that without you having to go in like Pro Tools and manually turn everything on and off. I always say, you know, Pro Tools is very customizable. It is 100%. There are some reasons why I wouldn't want to have all of these parameters and plugins in my automation. Maybe if you're an engineer that likes Pro Tools, that's the reason why you like it. You hate that the fact that the program is deciding things for you. Maybe you have control issues. Maybe you should see somebody. But Logic, you know, kind of cuts corners and does some things for you. And as we said, when we created buses, it actually created the entire channel strip for us, the auxiliary track, to add our timed effects of Space Designer and Delay Designer. And again, if you don't remember those plugins, you don't remember what to do with EQ and compression and the settings, you don't remember reverb and delay, please make sure you go back and you listen to the lessons, watch the lessons on YouTube channel before tomorrow's test. All right. All right. While I, again, don't let me forget to go back and answer that question about bouncing, because that is what we will wrap up today with, actually. Let's take a look at some other things here, because we're again talking about plugins, right? And we want to take it just a little further. And while I'm saying that, I'm just going to set up, I'm going to put my coffee on the ground before I knock it over with some cables. All right. So what we're doing is creating audio tracks and building plugins. All right, we did EQ, compression, we did reverb and delay, but there is so many more. And we did some, you know, other little ones with Pro Tools. The problem with Pro Tools is we missed the lesson on mastering, so we would have went further with plugins. Like I said, we might go backwards when we get to mastering in Logic to also include Pro Tools in that, because that really will help sum up everything and help you out. One of the other things that Logic is very good at, as we know, and we did software instruments, we've done the drummer already, we really didn't talk too much about guitar and bass. So I want to show you this. So when I create a guitar and bass track, again, we're given the library option to select what we want. And here's all of the sounds of an electric guitar and bass. And since that's all I have here, electric guitar and bass, we're going to go ahead and select one of those. We'll do, I guess, distorted guitar. And then what does this want me to do? This is Brit. We'll do a citric acid, which you can now already hear that it's ready to go. And it has a lot of plugins built on it. Let me turn it off from buzzing for a moment. So let's take a look at the plugins involved with a very basic distorted guitar. All right. Right away, we have a noise gate, which is what we talked about. It's a dynamic plugin in the kind of close to the world of compression, but not really. It's a gate that opens and closes. When a signal comes over -65 of my threshold, the gate opens and lets sound through. When the sound drops below 65, it closes that gate. How hard is it going to close that gate and how fast is it going to close? Well, that's what these settings are. So a noise gate is in there just to allow some of the signal to come through. Let's talk about pedalboard and amplifier, two plugins that Logic comes with that are really very cool. Let's start with pedalboard. let that load up. So here are very fancy pedal stomp boxes, if people want to call them there. Um, but what it is a collection of all of these effects for guitars and basses. And every single one of these pedals has its own settings as well. And just like if you had a real guitar with a real pedal board and physical pedals, you'd have to come up with a signal flow of how all the signals travel through these pedals. And that's what this plugin does. So it starts off with a Roswell ringer, which I'd imagine with feedback and frequency and stuff like that, it's going to basically be a little bit of a distortion. You got candy fuzz. Usually when we use the adjective fuzz, we're talking about drive and distortion. We have monster fuzz. Wow, we're really getting a little distorted here. So same thing. And then we have this little cool mixer. So in our signal flow here from left to right, we're actually getting a ability in the middle here to switch over, go from a fuzz to more of a delay in the signal. So I just wanted to kind of show you this plugin because it's very cool to mess around with. You know, and I'll spend a day on it. How about that? Instead of, you know, just briefly talking about it. But what's also cool here, take a look at all these pedals. You can just quickly drag and throw it into the signal chain. And then if you don't like it that way, then you can split it out, A and B it, different ways of messing around with it. Any guitarist knows that in a pedal board, you usually have a straight signal, you have a full signal, you have a detoured signal. A lot of times that detoured signal is just a tune, but yeah, and you have those in here too. There's a wah pedal. There is a, what is this? Another wah pedal, couple classic and modern wah. So very cool. Also, what I wanted to show you with this is that there's an amplifier. So they actually give you this virtual amp. They got an amp head and you have an amp cabinet. With the amp cabinet, you have the ability to move around the microphone a little bit closer. Remember, we did our guitar lessons. I guess in that 3-day time before Thanksgiving is usually when we do this, where we can move the microphone a little further away, left to right. All of these positions change the sound, as well as all of the all of the head effects, reverb, EQ, all affect the signal as well. Now, why am I showing you that? Well, because there are 2 extra plugins that come with Pro Tools, with Logic, but they also become automatable. So if you look at this, you know, this is where you can really start creating some cool, crazy, flowing, real-time changes in your sound. So again, every single one of those pedals and their parameters are automatable. Every single one of the amps, the knobs, the mic itself, the positioning, and effects are all automatable. So I find that to be very, very important to note. A lot of times people aren't quite sure exactly, you know, where to find these or how to get them in there. For you guys starting out, again, I just want to make sure you understand that this wasn't me building from the start. I just started with a preset. If I don't like all the settings, I can change them. But at least it gave me a direction, saved me a bunch of time, so I didn't have to go in, add an amp, add a mic, add the positioning, add all the effects. It kind of gave me a lot of the direction ahead of time, and then I can go back and take more time to customize it to the way I want it. And let's go back to Wawa's thing before we wrap up. So Wawa, let me find you, unmute you for a second because I want to have that conversation really quick. There we go. Wawa, so when you bounce, all right, and you see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you bounce, are you right clicking like I am and saying export or bounce and join? Are you using these in here?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to tell you that when you do that, you're only going down to clip level. You're ignoring project settings. I had a feeling that this was the issue when you mentioned your issue. So when you're bouncing at this level, you're taking the clip for what it was and bouncing it. So literally you're hearing no effects in your bounce. You're going to get none of the automation, none of the fades, nothing. You're just going to get straight MIDI notes or straight audio, depending on the clip, with nothing on it. You may actually hear it as it plays back, but you're not going to get it when you listen back to the final WAV file or MP3 file. So let me show you a better way of doing it to include all those effects you're talking about, all right? So I'm going to first, select my cycle or my loop, or not. If you want to do the whole track, that's fine. But right now, we're just going to be talking about this one clip of the Sunset Kit. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cycle on. I'm going to solo this track too, because I don't want any other tracks in this, right? I just want this one track to be bounced. And instead of potentially bouncing and adding it back into the track, like if I was doing an export or if I was doing a bounce and convert or whatever, I'm going to just bounce it like I normally bounce the entire project. So Command B, and I'd pick whatever source I want. Once I bounce that to where I wanted to bounce it, and this one I'm just going to put on the desktop as test 333. All right. And then what I'm going to do smartly, hopefully, is create a new audio track to place this on. And I should have now, I'm going to my desktop really fast, go to my test, and there it is. We'll use the WAV file. All right, now what I should have is a more accurate representation of that clip with its effects.
Oh, okay.
That would be a better way to do it. It has an extra step in there. So I want to throw that out there. There's an extra step involved with that because you have to bounce to your desktop and then go back and re-import in a sense. But at least I know now that I will have all the effects and all the automation and everything else that I can hear when I push play on my project now in this clip. And what, in a sense, you've done is you've eliminated all the automation, all the other information, the software instrument, all that stuff. You've eliminated. So again, literally now I can basically mute this, I can hide it, and now I have an audio representation of it. And let's see how it sounds. Punch in, and this is a test only on the punch in. And perfect. Exactly what I was looking for, an audio version of my MIDI. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Awesome. Don't sound so excited. I'd be excited. Like, yes, that's the answer I was looking for. All right. Any other questions today? A bunch of review, a bunch of information about automating plugins, some little glimpses into pedalboard and amp, and of course, Wawa's little idea of when you put effects in and when you put automation in, how do we get it out correctly? Get Isaiah. Oh, no, he left. All right. Yes, get Vince, quick. What do you got?
What's the difference between reverb and delay?
So reverb is sound going out into a space, bouncing off of its surfaces, collecting more characteristics or losing some characteristics, and then coming back. So you're hearing direct sound, and then you're hearing time sound back. Delay is the exact same dry signal coming back again. Or I'm sorry, leaving again. Not coming back, but leaving again. So it's me saying cheers, 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 cheers. It sounds like echo almost. But you're getting that same exact sound repeated again, just held back and let go at a different time. So think of it as reverb is really the sound coming back. Delay is really the sound going out. That's kind of the effect you're thinking about. We're delaying a repeat of the signal. Isaiah, go ahead. I think he doesn't mean to keep unmuting himself. Anybody else with a question, raise your hand before we get out of here. All right, cool. Guys, tomorrow, 10 a.m., we'll be back here on the Zoom. I'll do a quick review. Make sure today you finish up project, whatever it is you owe me. You put your own number and letter in there. Everything is pretty much due to date except for tomorrow, 9A is due. And at 10:20 tomorrow on the classroom, the quiz will be available and active. Please make sure you go in and do that. Make sure you watch your YouTube videos. Make sure you review the lessons.